Welcome to Sim Sundays presented by GridFinder. This is episode, what is it? I looked it up before. 12. 12. Episode 12 of Sim Sundays, again presented by GridFinder, your weekly source of, what do we have? Sim racing, chit-chat, and exclusive interviews over here. It's in a little bit of racing once in a while, so if you like to step in there and get in, this week we're in iRacing, so we have a server up there right now called Sim Sundays with Jeff Maconi on there if you search for it. Pretty easy to find. And this week's episode sponsored by Trak Racer. So if you're looking to upgrade your rig or, just get off of that desk-mounted setup, go ahead and go to trakracer.com. And this week I'm joined, as always, by Tom. Tom, how you doing? And why don't you intro our guest this week?
Hello, I am doing well. My feelings are a little hurt because you said I was wearing jorts. And once we established that jorts are jeans and short combination, I'm over it now. But I was pretty sad. They're actually shorts, which is chino short combinations.
Chino shorts, yeah.
We've been through that. Obviously, the pre-show, we usually go through all the technical stuff with our guest. But in this case, we were discussing with Jeff the differences between shorts and jorts. So Jeff is woefully unprepared. But talking of Jeff,
they're jorts, but
welcoming Jeff Maconi to the podcast. We are skipping across the pond, as you would say, Chris, and we are entering the world of oval racing and iRacing. So, Jeff, welcome to GridFinder's Sim Sundays podcast.
Thank you for having me on. I'm very excited to be here. Should be a lot of fun.
I'm so excited to kind of pick your brain a little bit because I think in every episode, just about some reason, setups come to mind or come into the conversation. And I'm always like, I am terrible at making setups for myself. I just can't do it. No matter what I do, I end up messing up the car. And you run a fabulous website called Maconi Setup Shop. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what your business does?
Well, we provide setups on the iRacing platform specifically. We haven't expanded to other racing simulators quite yet, maybe someday in the future if the market is there. But the biggest thing that we do is we provide great baseline setups for people to use. Sometimes it works perfectly right out of the box for them. Some people will need to make some adjustments for their driving style. Each individual person drives a car differently, but we can put out a great product that they are able to jump in and be competitive right away. And it costs really less than your monthly iRacing subscription for some of the packages to go out and be competitive and run really at the front. I mean, I run always the exact setups that are on the website, and not many other places can say that. A lot of other places are pulling the wool over the eyes of their customers and running something completely different. I fully disagree with that, but I always run what's on the website, and in the past 2 days, I won an Xfinity race, I won a Cup race. Someone that I was racing with, I was spotting for him, won a truck race, and that's just the ones that I have been directly involved in. But if I can pull 30 seconds on the field at Watkins Glen, imagine what a really good driver can do on a setup like that.
Right, but this is deep. Okay, this is deep sim racing now. Okay, so there's a sliding scale of sim racing. You have your esports pros who are looking at all the little tiny details that they can focus on in order to get that like hundredth of a second over their opponent. And then you have people who like jump on Gran Turismo once every couple of weeks with a joypad and they race and they have fun, and they are equally online racers. So we're kind of at one end of the sliding scale. Tell us about your journey along that scale.
Well, I started off sim racing. There's a picture somewhere, my mom still has it, where I'm maybe 2 or 3 years old. And with the Nintendo 64, the wheel and pedals are as big as I am. And I fell asleep holding the wheel. So it was NASCAR 2000, maybe it was even 98, NASCAR 98 on the Nintendo 64 that I started on. And then over the years, I just played a lot of console games. The first ones that come to mind, what I thought was the best one was NASCAR 09. I loved it. Then NASCAR The Game Inside Line and all the other years after. Then those games started sort of going down in quality. I was getting older, and I went from doing the NASCAR console games to about 4 years ago or so, I was at work, and at the time I worked at a golf course. I don't play golf. I know nothing about golf, but for some reason I was hired to like run a golf pro shop and just like work the cash register and, you know, manage tee times and everything there. And a couple months beforehand, a much larger course had opened up about 2 miles away. So we didn't have very much traffic. So I would just sort of sit there all day. And then I started watching iRacing, the Coke series. At the time, it was the Peak Antifreeze series, which is the professional oval racers. I started watching those and I'm like, man, this is really cool. I liked it a lot. Then I started watching just regular broadcasts of different events that were on the bottom of the iRacing website. And from there, I saved up, you know, $200, bought a wheel and pedals, and got on iRacing. I originally was getting absolutely beaten badly in the modifieds, which were my favorite cars. At the time, I would go to Stafford Motor Speedway every Friday night. I'd watch the races there. I ended up working at that track for a little while as well. But I wanted to run those cars, the modifieds, and run them well, and I was not doing well at all. So I learned how to sit down, build a setup, and just grew it from there.
So you sat down and just built a setup. Are the majority of your setups kind of like you racing around making the perfect setup, or do you have like a staff of people that submit these setups? How do all of these come together? Because you have a lot of stuff on your website. I was looking at it because, like I said, I'm terrible at setup, so I'm like, well, maybe I just need to pay Jeff to give me some wins over here. So how do you gather all of it? Because there's so many cars out there. It would seem impossible for me to be able to get that amount of content. How do you do that?
Well, it all started in March of 2020. There was, I don't know how many people know about it, but it was something called COVID-19. And
I've heard stuff about that, just little things, you know.
Just, you know, occasionally mentioned once or twice. But with that, I went home. At the time I was in college, I was studying mechanical engineering technology at Purdue University. I went home to visit my parents for a week, and then we basically all got emails saying, hey, we're doing school online the rest of the semester. Stay at home, have fun. And I was like, well, I don't really have anything else to do. So I got on iRacing, and when it first started, it was just me building setups. And I did setups for the Legends cars, those little Ford 34 coupes, the very small ones that are darty and very hard to drive. Did those. I did the late models, the super late models, and the SK modifieds and Tour modifieds. And I did that for about 3 or 4 months, all of them every week, 5 setups per week by myself. And I would sell them through, I didn't even have a website at the time. It was through Facebook. So people would message me and I would, you know, say, hey, send me $5 on PayPal and sell them a setup. And from there, I met a guy named Bill Gross, who I raced with a lot in the late models, and he would always beat me. And he said, you know, hey, give me a portion of the setup sales and I'll build the setups. And I was like, it's not a bad idea. Someone else does the work and I get money for it. Sure.
Plus, so you can, since he's beating you, you can take his setup and be like, well, now I'm even.
Exactly. That was the theory. And then I started running much better in the late models. At the time, I didn't know what I didn't know. And those setups now I would look at and be like, this is terrible. How are we selling this? But at the time, it was what I knew. And they were better than anything else that was publicly available. But at that time in iRacing, nobody was selling setups. You would build your own, and anything publicly available was either 2 or 3 seasons old or wasn't very good. So it was better than what was available. And then we just had to constantly keep upping the ante. So when we had to keep making better setups and find more speed and do things better than anyone else, because at this point, other people started their own shops and tried to, you know, a lot of copycats would.
Well, yeah.
Right, they'd create their own. And so we had to stay ahead of the curve. So the big thing that I was focusing on in 2020 was staying ahead of the curve. So I brought in some people that I had raced with and that I knew were really good builders and had the knowledge, and pretty much just said, hey, you know, all you got to do is make 1 or 2 setups each week. Send them to me and we'll upload them and you get paid. And at the time, it was unheard of to get paid for iRacing. If you weren't a professional, you weren't making any money. Streamers weren't really doing it full time. They would have other games as well. If you weren't racing in the top series and signed by a team, you weren't making money on iRacing. And so to go to people and say, hey, build a setup to sell and get money, people were all over it. So now I don't build any anymore because everyone on board with Maconi Setup Shop, the whole staff of probably 10, 12 builders currently, are much better than I am. So we have people that build one car. We have two people that build a car together. Just depends. Some people will build, 2 or 3 cars. Actually, all of our road setups are built by one person, Daniel Civisfabo. He is amazing at what he does. I mean, I don't know. He's a university student and is just incredible at what he does. So he does every single week F3, F4, F3, F1, 2 LMP2 series, 2 GT3 series, and a GT4 series. And those GT3s series, he does 3 cars in each series. He does the Porsche, he does Ferrari, and Mercedes in both of those series. And the GT4, he does Aston Martin, Mercedes, and Porsche every single week.
Cow.
Yeah, and so he's building like crazy. So his workload is high, but he gets paid a lot. And you have other people that will do 1 or 2 cars, or they'll split a car together. And either way, you're doing a couple hours of work, and you get a good paycheck out of it. So they're very happy. And I'm happy because I get to run the website and manage it and race and do all these fun things. And currently, I have a day job where it just keeps me busy and working. But with how fast things have been picking up, it's going to shift back here to being a full-time endeavor for me. So I'll be working pretty much right where I'm sitting and running the company full-time, just with how much it's grown and expanded with all the different builders we have coming on and everything going on.
Well, congratulations, because it's not easy, right? It's not easy to go from side hustle passion project to full-time. And speaking from experience over at Gridfinder,
right.
It feels
and
good
it's
when you
scary.
go full-time.
Yeah.
Now, you said that, your builders, they have to just put in a couple of hours work and they get paid. But it's not just a couple of hours work, because it's that, you've heard the old fable about the engineer who goes down into the bow of the ship to fix the engine. The captain really needs to get the ship going, so he goes down to the engine. He smacks this thing with a hammer. The engine starts up, and he gives a bill to the captain for $10,000. And the captain's like, "I'm not paying for that. You just came down, you hit it with a hammer." And then he says, "Okay, I'll amend the bill." So then he amends the bill. This is a really long story. I forgot how long this story is.
No, you're fine.
He amends the bill, and he comes back to the captain, and he says, "Hitting the engine with the hammer, $50. 25 years of experience so that I knew where to hit the engine with the hammer, $950. This is kind of the same thing, right? So the guys building the setups, yeah, it takes them a couple of hours, but that's because they've accrued probably thousands of hours of driving and testing. So I'd like to know a little bit about the process of where the hell do you start with a setup? Because every little setting affects everything else. So what's step 1 to building your own setup?
Well, if you are at ground zero, absolutely nothing whatsoever, the best thing you can do, iRacing has different setups for cars and tracks available. There's baselines there. They're not great because they're not designed to be. They're designed to get you around the track and do so somewhat efficiently and safely. So if you are starting from there, start on the iRacing baseline. After a couple months, you should get to the point where you've run all the different tracks for, a car or something similar to it. So when I was doing the modifieds, there's really only 10, 15 tracks that they can go to. And when you have a really good setup at one, you can carry that into other tracks. So my setup for Stafford Motor Speedway, I think it is the best setup I've ever driven. We have put so many hours into that setup, making it perfect for everything that we need to get out of it. It is perfect.
Should have asked for that, Chris. we definitely should have asked for a copy of that setup.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what we'll be running later, and it's you take that setup, and I take that setup to Martinsville, and I take that setup to New Hampshire, and I take it to Gateway, and I take it to Milwaukee, and all these other similar tracks where you figure out what each car needs based on the track type. So for the modifieds, I know that the most important thing is the banking in the corners. That the banking in the corners determines everything and how that car performs. So you can take a setup built for a half-mile track like Stafford, Martinsville, and you can take it to a 1 mile track, to a 1.25 mile track. And all you do is adjust the gear ratio. The spring package stays the same. Now, you cannot take that setup to Bristol because the spring package is too different, the banking is too steep. So you figure out next what is most important in how the car drives. For some cars, it's the length of the track. For some cars, it's how steeply banked it is. You have to figure out what is most important. Then from there, you start figuring out what you specifically like. So I know with the modifieds, my strength is driving it very aggressively off the corners. I know that I'm going to use the right front up, so I need to balance that with a lot of right rear tire wear. And you do that, so I like a very short gear ratio. And I am at the chip as soon as I hit the end of the straightaway. A lot of other people don't want to be anywhere near it in the modifieds. They think they're losing power when they do it. It comes down to personal preference. So I know that I like a very short gear ratio. And if I have a very short gear ratio, then I need to make sure that it's not loose on exit. Otherwise, I will burn the right rear off too much. So you lower the track bar, the right rear track bar at that point. Okay, you're lowering the right rear track bar. That's going to tighten the car center of the corner a little bit. Now you need to adjust the caster. And you sort of figure out the process along the way, what needs to be adjusted in what order for you and how you specifically like it. So it's a very long-winded way of saying you really just need to practice and hit the track and run a bunch of different tracks and figure out what you like and how to make what you like happen.
Well, there's an interesting tidbit here. So obviously there are the extreme sim racers that race every single night. They have a little bit more time than the average person, and they can go into the nitty-gritty of, every single little teeny adjustment, track all of these different things that they're doing wrong or right or whatever, right? And then there's people like, let's say me, for example. Normally when I hop into a sim, I just kind of want to get in there and race. I don't really want to fidget with a ton of things, but I do want to be competitive. So a service like yours can help those people. Now, I know we get into a little bit of the realm of maybe even like a pay-to-win scheme here, but I don't really think it is, because it's getting you competitive, but you still have to drive the car. So I've always been one of those people that don't mind microtransactions, because if it saves me time and ultimately makes me have more fun playing video games, whatever, so be it, right? It doesn't really affect anyone else. Have you ever experienced like backlash or any kind of social attack, if you will, on selling setups in like this kind of pay to win almost culture kind of a thing?
Do you mean today or in general?
I guess in general would be the question. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were one of the first to offer setups individually. Now, services like VRS already existed, and they would do a monthly subscription. Now, with VRS, you were also getting telemetry and other things involved with it as well, and it was at a low price. Granted, the setups were not nearly at the level at what we were putting out and continue to put out, but you also got other aspects to it as well. So it was more learning how to drive, and you got setups too. Versus us, it's purely you get setups. You are buying setups from us. Now, we've grown and changed and added a lot of different features and products. So when we started that, though, and when I started the company, there absolutely was backlash, and people, and I fully understand it, and I respect the opinion, and I get it. Of, Jeff, you've brought this onto the iRacing community, this plague of setup shops of people trying to make money off of it. And
yikes.
Wait. The racers in iRacing, microtransaction hell, are mad at you for also giving setups and giving another option to make you more competitive in iRacing? That seems weird to me.
Yeah, you have that. And on the other hand, though, there's been people got very greedy very fast with setup shops. And it very quickly devolved to a lot of wrecking other people from other shops and a lot of spamming the chat and saying, "Oh, my setup's better, and you need to buy from me and not this person, and this person's stealing setups from them, and everything else." And the one thing I always said from the start is we need to stay out of that. I just told everyone, guys, if they wreck you, protest it. Don't get drawn in, don't get sucked into this crazy mindset that they have of just absolute. I mean, it's very toxic, but it's an obsession with it seems. And so for the average person that sees this and isn't involved with the shop, they see how toxic it is and how crazed some of these people are chasing money. And so it definitely, and I will admit, it was an issue of it got out of control way too fast, where anyone could start a shop and sell setups. It got out of hand far too quickly. And there were some shops that started up that, I mean, just one day they just took a bunch of people's money and stopped providing setups. I mean, I know of at least, I know of one case where that happened, and we, knowing this, put out a statement saying, if you bought from them, we will honor that purchase. So if you bought, 3 weeks of truck setups from them, we will give them to you. Just send us the receipt showing you paid for it, because that's just the right thing to do. And when we're the first ones, it opened Pandora's box. If it wasn't me that did it, somebody else would have. So you could say I feel an obligation and a responsibility to make sure that we are doing things right, running a good business, not scamming people, because we were the ones that opened Pandora's box. We unleashed this onto the community, and we need to be there we can't fix and control what other people do, but we can control what we do and make sure that we treat customers right. So there's been a lot of backlash. People hate me and send me messages and everything else saying, "Oh, I can't believe you started all this." And yeah, I get it. I understand now you're adding more money into the service. Some people think that setup should be free because other people offer them for free, to which I say, great. Cool. If they want to do that with their time for free, good for them. But on the other hand, for me, this is a company. It's what I do. It's something I love. It's something I'm very passionate about. But for the amount of hours and work that I have put in, there was a stretch where from February to really early August, where I had 3 weekends at home. I was traveling a lot to Nashville. I live close to Nashville and doing a lot of things down there. I traveled I think I went to over almost 20 different races for NASCAR over the course of those 6 months. I had 3 weekends at home. Now, I'm not complaining, but you can't do that for free, right? I have to pay to fly or drive to these places. I have to get a hotel room. A lot of the times the tickets were free because we do a lot of work with NASCAR and different teams and everything else, but you have to pay for all of that. And plus, mentally, it's exhausting. I work 40 hours a week as an engineer at a tire factory, and then I come home and I work on documents. I work on managing things. I work on what are we going to do next? How are we doing compared to other places? Where are we at in the market? What's changed in the market? So many different things. I mean, now we're working on something major behind the scenes that I can't unfortunately discuss, but it's a big part in why I'm going to be able to take this full time soon. And with that, I've written at least 40, 50 pages and of market analyses and basically how the company runs and what all we're working on. Putting together all those documents and spreadsheet after spreadsheet of calculations and profit loss statements. And
I have a feeling Tom is having PTSD at this moment with all of this stuff that you're talking about.
And that's and that's part of any small business. And I'm certainly not complaining. I chose this. I love to do it, and I am more proud of this company and all the work that I get to do than anything else in my life. But when people say, "Oh, it should be for free," well, no. I work a lot to make this happen. If other people provide it for free, sure, that's great for them. But it's not going to be at the same quality or at the same scale. They might do 1, 2 5 cars for free, they're not going to match the 20 plus cars we do every week. It's one of those things where if you want, you get what you pay for. I guess that's the simplest way to put it. You get what you pay for. So if you want people to put in the time and run a business well behind the scenes for iRacing, they have to charge money. Also, you look at any race team at any scale around the world, it's not the drivers that are working on the cars and figuring out what adjustments to make and making pit calls and strategies and stuff. You have engineers whose entire job is to set up the car and study it. And you have the crew chief on the box and you have all these people on board. So when people say, oh, well, why should I have to pay for this? You don't have to.
You don't have to.
It's an optional choice. And 2, it's offering essentially for hire engineers of any race team. It's like being an independent contractor as a race engineer. So do I understand why people say it should be free, why people push back on it? Yeah. Does it excuse or justify sending death threats to me and my family? It's a little bit of a stretch. Yeah, that's happened a couple times. That's been fun.
We've had a few guests on now from various different areas of the sim racing world who have said that. And I think that's kind of just a symptom of just putting yourself online in any capacity whatsoever. But let's focus on the positives here, right?
Right.
You have a serious passion for iRacing, clearly, because you've devoted, soon your working life to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think Chris and I would probably admit that we are road guys. So we have a lot to learn about oval racing. And I recently found out, basically because I was researching you and what you do for this episode, there's a lot more to oval racing than turning left. And I know you probably hate that phrase, right? But explain to the road guys what it is. Because I was reading about all sorts of settings that you change in the car, like that change dampers and things whilst you're driving around. And there's a lot more that you can adjust, like mechanically with the car as you're racing. And then you've got like the high line, the low line. There's a lot to it. So like explain it to us. How does it work?
Yeah, I've always found road racing to be racing against yourself. You are out there trying to get the best lap time, run the best line, hit all your apexes, hit your marks every single lap. And it is absolutely a skill, and it's absolutely very difficult. There are a lot of people a lot better than I am at road racing because it is a whole different craft, and I absolutely respect it. It's amazing. But on the oval side as well, I think a lot of it does get lost in just lack of experience a lot of the time. A lot of road racers don't make that journey over to oval and try it out and see what it's like. And I hope they do. And it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot more aggressive, I think, for sure. There's a lot more beating and banging on the oval side. You are racing just as much against other people as you are yourself. I feel like in road racing, like I said, you are hitting your best laps that you can hit with your car, your setup, your skill level. But for oval racing, you can get stuck in a really bad position a lot easier than on the road side as well. So if you are on the road, on a road race, you've got all these different opportunities to hit different apexes and hit your marks at different areas. So let's say Watkins Glen, because that's somewhere that races both road races like LMP2s, Formula cars, everything else, as well as NASCAR series. When you are there in a NASCAR car, the passing zones are completely different than the road cars, just like how passing zones for oval and road are different. It's frowned upon to, in road, sort of dive it into a corner and stick your nose in there and push someone out of the way. In oval, on the short tracks, that's just, it's necessary. In the modifieds, you will stick the nose in and literally push the guy up the track. So you're leaning on each other a lot more. Oh yeah, you will. There's a lot more contact.
Sounds expensive.
Yeah. Well,
jeez.
On the modifieds themselves, what's really interesting is those bars on the side. Those are called Nerf bars, and they are literally designed with the sole purpose of banging on someone else's Nerf bar and pushing them out of the way.
What?
It sticks out. Yeah, it sticks out a little bit further than the wheel. it's very hard to compress them inwards by side contact. So you just push them up out of the way. In real life at Stafford Motor Speedway, there's in turn 3, Woody Pitcat and Keith Rocco really perfected it, called the bottom shot move into turn 3, where you just send it in, you really overdrive the entry where it's flat, and you use the other car and you just push them up and you take the position that way. So,
I'm a little bit confused about what turn 3 is, because there's only 2 corners.
So in oval, this is a whole discussion when you get to tracks like Indianapolis, Pocono, but each corner, each half of the track, those are 2 corners. So you have turn 1 where you enter in, and then you get halfway through, and you get to turn 2, and then you come off of turn 2.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
that's
and then you enter turn 3. So any oval track has at least 4 corners.
Imagine. I don't know if you follow Formula One, but do you remember the Jeddah track that came out, and they were just inventing corners which are little kinks in the track? if they used the same methodology here, there'd be about 100 corners on that track. If every entrance and exit to a corner counted as a single corner.
Yeah, and so that's how they count it there.
Interesting.
But I would say the biggest difference between the two is road racing, you're racing more against yourself. On the oval side, you are racing against the other people. You are basing your strategy off of others. You're beating and banging and leaning on other people a lot more. I would say another really big thing is there's different lines at each track that are all equally fast, depending on how you run them. So let's take Chicagoland Speedway, for example. Unfortunately, it's not raced in real life anymore. And fingers crossed that they go back to it because it's an amazing facility. But most tracks you want to ride down on the bottom. The shortest way around the track is the quickest. But if you have banking, that some tracks will change. It's progressive banking up the track. So the bottom might be 25 degrees. The top could be 32, for example. You can carry more speed along the top and carry a lot of momentum. So they will get around the corner quicker than you. But when you're up top, you're carrying more speed, and you can get a really big run down the straightaway and then pass them. So a lot of different strategies and different lines that you can run and be just as quick as somebody else.
It sounds like in oval racing, there's a lot of the things that we're not allowed to do in road racing are like encouraged. And they're like, yeah, we know you can't do it in road racing, so we made this new type of racing where you can. It's almost like if you were to go to an amusement park and there was the one bumper cars that they're like, okay, don't hit each other, or go-karts. Okay, don't hit each other. And then there's the other ones where they're like, yeah, go to town, do whatever. You're like, I want to go on the ones where I can hit anybody I feel like hitting.
You can see the appeal, right?
Now, the big difference is leaning on somebody and wrecking somebody. And that is a very fine line. And that's where feelings get hurt. Because if you... I
can't even imagine
it's a matter of inches, if that, between hitting someone where they're pushed out of the way and hitting someone where you spin them around. It's a very fine line.
I can only imagine the nightmare that is stewarding these races. Like, in road races, if someone makes a move to block you twice, people are like, oh, that's a double move, that's not allowed, and everyone freaks out about the stewarding there. But here it's like, well, they rammed each other, but did they ram each other the right way? Like, it seems like that would be impossible to steward.
If both cars keep going, typically it's okay. There's also no real rules against blocking. There's no rules written against it, but you will face repercussions. So if you, a common expression is you block, you pay, or you pinch, you pay. If you want to swerve down the track in front of somebody, sure, don't be surprised. What I always do, and what's actually a very popular rule in the modifieds, is the 3-tap rule. If I get to you, the first tap on your back bumper, if I'm behind you, is I am here. The second tap is it's time to move. The third tap is I'm moving you. If you get wrecked, tough, you had your warnings. And that was popularized in real life by a guy named Ted Christopher. And he was amazing. He passed away a couple years ago, sadly, but just the skill that he had behind the wheel of a modified, and he popularized the 3-tap rule. First one is, I'm here, I'm going to race you. I'm here. I'm faster than you because I caught you. The second tap is, it's time for you to move. I'm quicker and I'm getting tired of sitting behind you. The third tap is, best of luck. If you spin out, tough. I'm not, he's not trying. You're not trying to wreck the person. But if it happens, you had your warning. So
it's like a totally different sport. It feels like it has there's a very different attitude to racing. When people say, "Oh, I'm racing somebody," not just generally, but you're on the track right next to somebody and you're racing. In GT3, GT4 racing, that feels very different to what this is. But then there's also like a whole other layer, right? You have like the Joker laps and caution laps. How does all that work?
So Joker laps are for dirt road. That's like the off-road trucks and stuff. But for cautions and stuff, they are full course cautions. So equivalent to a safety car, which we don't really have in iRacing on the roadside. But as soon as you see a caution come out, everyone slows down. The field is frozen in the order that they are. So if the caution comes out and you just had the nose of your car in front of somebody for third place, you get that position because you were ahead of them. And then they basically clean up the wreck. You get a chance to pit, get new tires, fill it up with fuel, repair damage, whatever you want to do. Then they line you back up, double file, and wave the green flag and start the race again. So if you get caught in a wreck, it's not unheard of to be able to repair your car, depending on the amount of damage, and get back out there and be competitive. I mean, we had, well, he didn't end up winning, but someone I was racing with this morning in the race that I won, he got wrecked, and he was back in like 25th of 27 cars. He got 8.5 minutes of damage repaired because it knocked the front end out of the car. Wow. Got it all repaired. They fixed it, and he went back out, and he drove up and passed other cars that had wrecked and finished 19th. So, ended up saving, a good, passing another 6 cars and helped him a ton.
Oh. Yeah, we have, I say we, by Formula One standards, our pit stops are 3 seconds. And they're like, oh, that was a slow pit stop. Uh-oh. What's going to happen now? You're with 8 minutes and repairing the whole car and just like, yeah, go on, get back out there.
Yeah.
Go on for a ride.
Most pit stops are between, for NASCAR, about 12 to 14 seconds for 4 tires and fuel. Okay. So they also use 2 fuel cans. Someone literally hoists a can on their shoulder, sticks it in, and then that has about 9 gallons or so in it. They pull that can out, run back, grab another can, and put that one in. And at the same time, you have 2 people changing the tires. They have the lug guns. Depending on what kind of car it is, they'll have either 5 lug nuts or just one big center lock in the Cup Series. Pull the tire off. Someone else places the tire on. They tighten up the tire, and then they sort of roll the tire over back to the pit road, and they run around. They do the same thing again. They jack the car up on each side. It's very cool. The pit stops are an art for NASCAR, but not nearly as optimized as Formula One, where they're doing pit stops in 2 seconds. That's incredible.
Done. Yeah. Yep. I'm in my mind. I'm picturing the beginning of Talladega Nights with Will Ferrell, and I'm just like in my mind. That's the only pit crew that I can ever picture working the pits at a NASCAR race. And with what's the big guy with the super deep voice? Anyway, that's not important.
Now that's gonna bother me until I remember it.
We'll have to message it out on social later when we finally go, oh, we remember now.
I can find it.
Okay, so you're very much an iRacing guy, right? And you said that you had a journey up to iRacing and they were all NASCAR titles. And then you hit iRacing and now you've stuck with iRacing. Can you see yourself going anywhere else for oval racing? Because motorsport games have come out with a title and it wasn't too well received, but I can't imagine iRacing are going to be the only people to ever do any kind of oval racing.
Yeah. So first off, it's Lucius. His name was Lucius. Now I remember. I found that on Google. But to answer your question on it, with how accurate iRacing is with the laser scan cars and all the physics that they put in and all the work they do behind the scenes to make NASCAR especially as realistic as possible, because that's the main demographic on iRacing is oval racers. From our market analyses, what we found is that asphalt oval is the most popular form of racing. Road is very close, it's up there, but oval, especially NASCAR, is unbelievably popular. About 70% of people running ovals will run exclusively NASCAR. So it's very impressive, the dedication to it. And iRacing recently became a partner of NASCAR, so they're getting so much data and information on these cars. Wow. And it's incredible what they're able to do. What we have found, especially with the next gen cars, because those just released, what we found in those cars is that very stiff right side springs for a time it was as good as you could get. You just maxed out the right side springs. And I was actually at Talladega having a meeting with Kurt Busch about some future stuff that we have planned, which is going to be very cool. And I mentioned that, and I said, and I was talking to him, and I said, Kurt, on iRacing, it's just not realistic with the next gen cars. I said, all we're doing is maxing out the right side springs. And he looks at me, he goes, that's what we're doing here. He goes, upstairs, the car's kept up above. He goes, we got 4,000 pound right side springs and 500 pound left pound springs. And I was like, it's amazing. Even when we think iRacing is wrong and that there's something wrong with the physics and all we do is max out the springs and that's it. In NASCAR, that's exactly what they're doing. It's as realistic as you can possibly get. It's incredible. So
that's reassuring to a certain extent, right? You're like, oh, it's all wrong. He's like, no, that's spot on. That's exactly what it should be doing.
Yeah, he goes,
that's amazing.
It's perfect. And so
I love that crossover between the real and virtual world. And we've seen, it reminds me of a bit in there. So we went to the Alpine Formula One factory for one of the podcasts. I think it was last month, and Guillaume, who manages the esports team, was telling me that actually the simulations that they use are so realistic that before they go to a track, the sim racing team will give advice to the engineers for the real team if there's been changes to the track. So when there was like the Jeddah, the new track, they were racing it in the game because they'd obviously never raced it before. And then they were asking the esports drivers, like, where's good to overtake? What's tire deg like? All these questions that's amazing. Baffling. But Chris, you knew that already, right? You've listened to my episode at Alpine.
No. It's absolutely amazing that simulation racing, because a lot of people when they think sim racing will think those little piddly arcade things they see at like a Dave and Buster's or like a bar arcade kind of a thing where you sit down, throw your quarters in, and it jumps over bridges that are exploding, and Godzilla comes in and tries to eat your car. That's what they think sim racing is, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I've got a great story for that, but yeah.
Go for it. I want to hear it now.
So, there was someone I was dating. Her name was Madison, and the first date that we went on, she asked, like, what do you do for work? What are your hobbies and all that?
Of course.
And I mentioned, I run my own company, and she's like, what do you do? And I was like, thinking to myself, well, I sit and play pretend race cars all day. And I didn't say that. I said, well, it's a simulation of cars, and I explained the whole thing, what iRacing is and what it's about and what I do. And she goes, oh, so it's like a video game. And for simplicity's sake, I was like, yeah, it's like a video game, but just really realistic. And then she called her parents and was like talking to them, and they asked, what does he do? And she explained it to them as, those arcades in the mall with like the racing? She goes, he does that. And then she told this to me, and I was like, that's not at all what I do.
And there's a single tear rolling down one cheek.
And so I then had to explain to her parents, and she had to explain to her parents and show them like videos and stuff. of what I was doing, and like we showed them broadcasts of races I was in and everything else to show them like, no, I'm not going down to like Chuck E. Cheese and
You're the guy with the roll of quarters and just
Right.
schooling kids the whole
Giving
day.
some advice over the shoulder.
Yeah, I was like, that's not what I do. That's not even close to what I do. I am making virtual setups that can then be carried over to the real world if they so choose, not
That's amazing.
playing Dirt to Daytona 2002. So
That's amazing. You know, Tom, you kind of pointed out something interesting that I'd never really put any brain power into. Oval racing and iRacing is just like a 1-to-1 match. That's what you do if you're an oval fan. But us road guys, like you said, admittedly, both of us are road guys. We have ACC, we have AC, we have Gran Turismo, we have all these other games that are equally as good as each other that are always competing for our attention. Whereas, I mean, I'm trying to think of, what was there? NASCAR Heat was a thing for a while, and they haven't made a new game in a bit, right?
yeah, they're bankrupt now.
What is another oval game that you would say, okay, yeah, if you're not an iRacing person, what is the game that you would recommend? Like Tom and I could recommend 5 games right off the rip, just bam, 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 bam.
We jump between games quite often, but it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like that's an option in oval racing.
You know, there's really not much. If you're looking specifically for oval content, iRacing is, it's hands down the best. It's the most realistic. It's the most expensive, but it is well worth it. If you are that interested in oval racing and exclusively oval racing, then it is worth the time and money to get involved in it. There's just nothing that even compares.
I think this makes a lot more sense now why iRacing is so popular, or at least in my head, because for the longest time I've been struggling as to why do people pay for iRacing? But me as a road guy, I have all these other games, like Assetto Corsa. You can get the Ultimate Edition, which has modding until your eyes bleed, and it's like $8, and you're all in. So when you go to iRacing as a road guy, you go, wait, how much is it per year? And I have to buy every car? What's going on here? But as an oval person, that's your only option, which is, it's both kind of disappointing, but also you get such good quality. You're saying it's basically like real world racing. It's almost a 1-to-1 match perfectly. So it almost, in my mind, legitimizes the reason to pay for iRacing, in all honesty. So, but
Absolutely.
if you had to pick another game, and you, let's say, for some reason, iRacing banned your account. I don't know, whatever, right? You rode in the grass too long, and they banned your account forever. And what would be your go-to after iRacing?
Probably Project Cars. If I had to guess something along, one of the Project Cars.
It would be I guess it would be a tough go because, like you said, there's not really anything that's legitimate for ovals.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Maybe Gran Turismo. I've heard good things about it. I haven't played it, but you are never going to reach that same level of quality for oval, especially for road. Yeah, it's pretty. I've heard great things about other games. They have their own different feels, and they feel, some. It's like the car responds way too much. It doesn't respond enough. It depends on the game, but for oval, yeah, I would say iRacing is your best. If you're going to play a racing game for ovals on PC, iRacing is your choice. And they're not paying me to say that. They're not, I don't get anything from saying that. But I would say absolutely iRacing is your best choice for oval content on PC. If you're looking to just pick up and play, sure, grab NASCAR Heat on a console and plug in a controller and do that. But if you're looking for realistic, quality, high-level racing for ovals of all the way from Legends up to Cup cars, iRacing is your best and only choice, I would say.
So, as a setup shop, how involved do you get to be with iRacing? Like, has there been any kind of reaching out one way or the other to be like, hey, just so you know, we're doing this, just make sure you're happy with it. Is there anything we can do to work together on it? Or is it very much two separate entities? They know you're there, they're happy that you're a big part of the community, but there's no overlap. Do you have any kind of crossover?
It depends on the shop. For us, we have a really great relationship with iRacing, and that's something
That's
thankful
good.
for. Yeah, I mean, I work with their director of marketing, Chris Leone. I mean, he and I talk at least 2 or 3 times every week on different events. We work together a lot for. We have put on an event called the Stock Car Summer Showdown, and that wraps up actually on Tuesday. So we're racing in ARCA cars at Stafford, which I'm very excited for. I might be able to finally have a good, strong finish. I finished fourth, I think, in the last race. Something like that. So I'm hoping to have a good showing there. But we work together on a lot of things. So our relationship with iRacing is very good. There's other shops that they've blackballed. They won't talk to them. They don't want anything to do with them. They are not good for the community. They can't shut them down, but they sure as heck cannot give them any publicity or help them out at all. So with iRacing, they're nice to us. They'll they feature us in a lot of advertisements. Very nice. They did an interview with Dale Earnhardt Jr., we partner with his team, Junior Motorsports, and so they did an interview with Dale Jr. and they featured our logo on different cars that we sponsored on 2 or 3 different occasions during it. They've used our logo in advertisements, and there'll be times where they'll come to us and say, "Hey, what are people's thoughts on this? What's your thoughts on this?
That's awesome.
What if we did this?" And I go to them and bounce ideas off of them. Hey, is it okay if I do this? Or what are your thoughts on that? Part of the big project that I've been working on the past couple months involved validating the number of current active users on iRacing. And that exact number is something they keep private. So I used what publicly available information I had and went to them and said, "Hey, I know you don't publicly state this, but here are my numbers for what I think the active market is. Can you tell me if I'm close or right or wrong?" And they even said, "Here's what the number is. This is what we have.
Oh, wow.
Here's how close you are," things like that. So thankfully for us, we have a great relationship with them. And that came from always doing things right and doing the right thing and talking to them, and always laying it out there and saying, "Guys, we know we use your platform to make money. We want to be sure we're not stepping on your toes. We want to be sure we're not giving you a bad name. And we both benefit from working together rather than enemies." There was one time where I was in a race with a iRacing staff member, and the setup that they had loaded was outdated, and the car was dragging on the track. It was terrible. It was undrivable. And I got a text after the race. I was in the race as well with a staff member, and I got an email afterwards saying, "Hey, these cars. Can you put something together that we can look at and compare?" And we did that. We've done when the iRacing Invitational occurred. We sent over setups for them to look at and build off of for those series. We weren't publicly giving credit for it, but we were sending them setups and saying, "Hey, this is what would be good." And that was with eNASCAR and iRacing. So for us, we have a great relationship, and I love those people over there. They are amazing. I'm very thankful for them. And what's also nice with that is if we have a problem and we say, "Hey, we've got a problem with this group. They're doing XYZ, and we don't think it's good for the community," they'll look into it and handle it. There was one point someone tried to include the word iRacing in a copyright so that no one else would be able to use that term.
Oh, wow.
And so
that seems bold. That is a bold move.
Yeah, how dumb can you be to try and step on their toes like that? And so I went over to iRacing and I basically said, "Hey guys, I don't know if you've seen this yet. I spotted this. I don't know if you yet, but I don't have a team of rabid lawyers, but you guys probably do for a company of your size. So go ahead and send them out." And all of a sudden, I haven't heard anything about it in months, and
it just disappeared.
Just amazing how that happened. But
I absolutely love those stories, and it's one of the things that I love the most about gaming communities is when you see like the big dog, like iRacing, kind of leaning down and helping up people in the community and helping them kind of share in success, right? The whole a rising tide helps all boats. Some people don't agree with that kind of ethos, but I love these stories where you see titles like iRacing helping out independent small entities. Because I remember when we spoke back in September 2020, you were still just starting out, you were still at college full time, you were just doing it in the evenings and weekends, and now it's grown to what it is now. Have you had anything similar with like teams and drivers? Do you get much do you get questions from engineers in the real world being like, we're stuck on this, any ideas?
There was one setup that we helped a Xfinity team build, NASCAR Xfinity Series team, and they went out, and I think it was at Texas, and they took our setup and they tried it, and I mean, the guy was top 20 when usually it's like top 25 or so he was having a good run. I think, and they might have had a mechanical issue or a wreck or something, but we've worked with teams up at that level. We get a lot of local teams, Stafford, Nashville Fairground Speedway, a lot of retired racers who, they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s. They can't go to the track, but they'll come to us and say, hey, we used to do this in our cars. Can you recreate that in iRacing? And we'll get as close as we can for them. So yeah, a lot of real world teams from all levels, all the way up to NASCAR, have and still sometimes do come to us and say, what are your thoughts on this? This is what we're seeing. What would you do? What do you think would work? So yeah, we do have that. It's very cool when that happens too. Yeah,
that I can only imagine. What would the equivalent for Grid Finder be? I guess we wouldn't really have any.
It would be what would it be? Stefano Domenicali being like, hey Tom, so we're thinking of doing this thing called Formula Zero, and we just want somebody to help organize it and show people where it is.
Did you really just go F-Zero?
Well, it's because in my head I was like, is that a thing? I didn't know that was a thing, but in my head I was like, Formula 1 is a thing. I can't say Formula 2 because that's already a thing. So I'm going to go the other way, and I just said Formula 0. I didn't realize that was already okay.
F-Zero is one of the greatest old school hovercraft racing games.
No way.
That everyone wants to come back again.
Yeah, right, maybe Nintendo
on Grid Finder.
But I hate to interrupt the conversation, but we probably should hop on the track for a little bit and throw some laps together before, I think... What time did you set the server to end?
Oh, it doesn't stop for another hour, maybe even 2 hours. So we got loads of time.
But yeah, let's get in there and throw some laps together. And then afterwards, once we're actually done with the race, we'll do some viewer questions if they have any more. Or, of course, I'm sure Tom and I can come up with plenty more questions for you, Jeff.
Absolutely.
Fabulous. So... Obviously, you said very briefly that you actually worked at Stafford before, and that was kind of part of the choosing of this track. But can you tell us a little bit more about the love for this track and why you wanted to race it for the podcast today? And the car, too. Let's throw the car in there as well.
Yeah, so with Stafford, what is very cool about it is I used to work there as I started out just helping out with video feed. And then they sort of threw a microphone in my hand and said, have fun. And I was down on pit road. I would interview drivers. I did victory lane. I did a couple races up in the booth. It was so much fun. So I did that for 3 or 4 summers, and I learned so much from that experience. And it really helped me find a love of the modified. So these cars, they are very high powered. They're very light. They only weigh a couple thousand pounds. You can see they have the massive air filter on the front. They are very easy to overdrive. The bonnet. They're very easy to overdrive, but they also have a lot of grip. The tires are massive. They're open wheel cars, which is very rare for an oval series. It's the most popular open wheel oval series on iRacing. There's also the sprint cars and now I'm forgetting the name, the Silver Crowns. There's 2 versions of this car as well. There's the SK modified and the Tour modified. They're actually the exact same car, but with a different engine and gearing inside of it. So you can't take one setup and make it work on the other. You have to change it around a bit. But the chassis is exactly the same in real life. A lot of the times they will pull the engine out of one car and drop it. And drop it into drop another engine in. So you can take one chassis and have it be an SK modified, a Tour modified, an SK Light, which is an even smaller engine, an Open modified, which is an engine. All these different options that you have available.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's a very cool car. I love them to death. They are the cool.
Well, let's see how how I fare on this. How you doing out there, Tom?
I'm doing all right. There's something I have realized. This is our first ever time doing iRacing on the Sim Sundays podcast, and I have stupidly chosen late afternoon as the time, and clearly it gets dark very early in whichever state this track is in, because it's already pretty much dark.
Mm-hmm. I don't know Connecticut, yeah.
Will the floodlights come on?
There are no lights. There's lights at Stafford in real life, but they have not been modeled into iRacing. I asked Kevin. So there's two things about these cars. Is Kevin Iannarelli drives one in real life. He also models the tracks. And this is not an up-to-date scan, and I wish they would do a new one. But two, Stafford has lights in real life, but they don't work in iRacing. And I asked him why, and he said, I just haven't gotten to it yet. To which I said, Kevin, it's been 5 years. But, so I'm going to quickly shut off my camera and then move it over to mission so that I can race, and then I'll move it back. So, 1 second there.
Okay, I think...
You said your best time, Tom, is 19 seconds?
Yeah, Chris! I was going for the high line. I think that's what you call it.
Oh, you know what I was waiting for? I was waiting for that
the crew
Helio
chief.
Corsa thing, the crew chief thing that tells you where people are.
Oh, God.
Oh, what is going on?
Oh, hang on, but you're allowed to bump people, though, right? Why did I... Hang on, right, so here's the thing. I just got a 4X for car contact, but I thought you could bump people. Maybe that... Do you know what that probably is? That's probably me just not setting it up correctly.
You're allowed to bump people, but you may, it may be a bit of a penalty for it. So...
Bumping.
Right.
Oh, no! Oh, there it went. I'm okay. Maybe.
I am slowly setting up my camera here.
Holy moly, this thing has
a lot of power.
Yeah, it does. Well, because I just spun out and then I tried to whip it around and get back on the track, and I just ended up spinning more.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the technique here? What's the line? When are we braking? When are we turning in? What should we be thinking about here?
I'm terrible at this.
All right. You all are going to get a lovely camera view here. There we go. Should be good.
Yeah, I don't even know where...
All right. So.
Oh my God, who's upside down? Who's upside down on the
no.
I don't think I've ever seen that in sim racing. And I love the detail there, because you were just sliding along, like upside down, and the sparks coming from underneath as like the roof of the car was scraping along the track. That's the only light we've got on this track.
So, first of all, welcome to my rig. Yes, I have a 4-point harness as a seatbelt.
Nice.
Why? Because I can, and I got it for free. I have these beautiful gloves from Abruzzi Racewear. Love them. They are amazing.
Nice.
Customized with name, number, and logo. You can get these on the Abruzzi website, on the Maconi page. You also got boots as well. This lovely camera angle. And they are customized. I don't know if you can see the front, but they also have my name and number, and a flag.
Nice.
So, I'm going to put this on very quick.
Yeah, safety first, Jeff. Oh, who's it? Oh, Jeff's a VR guy.
I am.
So this is first iRacing, first oval, and first VR on Sim Sundays. This is all the firsts.
And I need to click those two buttons right there. And now I can't move my mouse. But if I click these two buttons right here, now I can. Wow, it is dark out here, boys.
It really is.
Sun has set on Stafford Speedway. All right.
Can we change this mid session?
No, I doubt it.
I don't think so.
Oh no.
So I've
Sorry.
got to
Oh.
ask. Have you always done VR racing?
I used to race on a monitor, and then I moved to VR, and I love it. It turns it, in my opinion, from a game into a simulation, because the VR, having this 3D view of everything around you, is incredible. It's incredibly cool, but it's also incredibly helpful. So I don't know if the camera's on me as I'm pulling out here.
I've done VR probably a handful of times, like less than 10, right? And I loved the experience of driving the car. The one thing I didn't like is just like my ability to see anything else around me. So like if I wanted a drink or if a family member came into the room and tapped me on the shoulder, it was the scariest moment of my life kind of stuff. Like the one thing about VR is that like you get invested and you're all in the simulation, and I really like that portion of it. Now, which VR headset are you using at the moment?
I have an HP Reverb G2. I love this thing. I got it about actually almost a year ago now, and it is phenomenal. I used to have a Rift CV1 and then a Rift S, and have since upgraded past them to this HP Reverb. So I'm turning a few laps on track right now, and I am finding my groove. It's been a while. I've turned laps here, which is tragic and heartbreaking. I'm about a 10th off of the fast lap here.
So what is a good lap time, would you say?
I would say low 18s is the goal. I think I usually run high 17.9s.
Okay.
So I am now 1/1000th of a second off, so I know I can take this top time. It's a lot of people in here. It's hard to get a good lap when you're got a lot of cars around.
Well, pretty soon it's gonna literally be pitch black on the track.
Almost. We're getting very close to it. So I'm working right now, trying to get around some of these other cars and find speed. But your typical racing line is there's a light pole at the entry of turn 1, and you want to brake there. You sort of do all your braking right at the beginning and then let it coast for a second, and then you get back on the throttle. You actually want to dip your left side tires down onto the apron in turn 1,
Okay.
and then diamond the corner. So it's a very strange and unique line. Very unique to Stafford specifically. And there we go. We're back at the top time, 3:95.
So the apron is the flat bit at the bottom, and what's the point of the apron?
That is just marking the edge of the track, and you can go down there. So that's where the lap cars will go. If someone's getting lapped, they will go down in real life to the apron rather than the outside, and we'll let someone by there.
Gotcha.
Chris, I think that was you. I just showed the bottom shot move to where I dove it in real hard into turn 3. That's the famous move.
I'm very heavy on the exit, and I keep spinning out on the exit.
Yeah, with the amount of power that these cars have, it's sort of a very slow roll into the throttle.
Yeah.
But when you get that feeling and you nail it, you'll know. I think I put a qualifying setup in. Whoa.
Interesting.
And the pit road entry here is very unique in that it's yeah, it's very hard to see it. Not only because it's dark, but it's also sort of at the entry of
Ooh, someone else
turn
spun.
3.
Nice.
Me.
That's you?
Yeah.
Well, If we don't make it exciting by crashing out, then no one will.
Well, we have to make it exciting through us just screaming because they can't see anything because it's pitch black.
It is very dark here.
Oh boy.
Oh, yikes. This is lessons learned from the podcast.
The funny thing about this right now is that it's making me want to try some dirt oval, and get some drift action going on.
Yeah, there's you can learn a lot from running other types of cars here, but with oval, as I spin it out. Wow.
Whoa, Jeff.
Whoa!
I feel like if I was to do this enough, I'd have to like run a track backwards for 20 minutes so I get a little bit of a workout on my left arm too. Because I definitely feel it.
Yeah, but with the
one
way
side.
with the way these cars are set up, they actually camber the tires pointing to the inside of the track, so it will pull left and turn very easily. So turning to the right here in an oval car is very difficult.
The bottom of the tire is actually slanted. The tire walls are slanted. Ooh.
So they're mounted. Oh my goodness, big wreck in turn one. So they will actually be mounted at that angle, and they control that angle and how tilted it is based on the needs for the track. The more tilted it is, the easier it is to corner, and the faster you can go in the corners, but the faster the tire will then wear out because it's putting more force on less of the tire, smaller surface area. Another very cool aspect of these cars is they only have 2 gears.
Yes, I noticed that.
I did notice that too. I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, in real life they call it the low and high gear. You use low gear on the restarts and high gear once you're racing, and you just
That's
leave it in
interesting.
second. Yeah, there's no track where you shift in these cars.
The cold tires seem to make a huge difference.
Yeah, they will. As soon as you get that heat in the tires, you will feel it, and you can push the car a lot harder. But it takes about a lap or two to
In
get the
iRacing,
feeling.
where is tire temp? I don't think I have it up.
You can see that when you pit on one of the black boxes in the bottom right.
So
Lap
Mike,
timing
who
down
does our
there.
broadcasting, I'm really hoping he's playing around with the lighting settings on this video. You're gonna have to set the exposure all the way up. This is so
It's
hard.
definitely brighter on the stream than it is on my monitor.
Oh, good.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, in VR, I'm getting ready for bed. I'm putting on my pajamas at this point. I did just set it.
Oops, someone's. Oh, I almost.
Me again. It's kind of satisfying. I just haven't worked out how to race near people.
Woo!
Oh god. I feel like that was probably. Oh, I've got black and orange. I've got the meatball. This is chaos.
I'm upside down.
I've just seen a GT3.
I'm just, you know what? I'm just gonna sit here. Who is this next to me? Oh, he's backing up.
Oh, I just saw the replay of it, and
He's-
this is professional racing, guys. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah,
we are.
I do this.
we are
I do this for a
professional.
living.
What's going on there?
It's me. You know me, just hanging around.
Oh man. Okay. You know what would be nice, Tom, if I could see the track. You know. That
Yeah,
would,
lights.
that would,
Mistakes were made in the setting up of this server. I'm not gonna lie. I can see the green lights really clearly. I'm just using the green lights as an indicator of where I'm meant to be braking and turning.
I don't even really see someone coming up on me until they're on my bumper.
Yeah. No. As the great Lightning McQueen once said, race cars don't have lights because the track is always lit. Except for right now.
Except for here, right now.
Yeah.
I see the
Some of
light
this.
stacks, but no luck.
Oh my god, this is so. I also noticed that we're the only 3 now left in here. Everyone else,
Probably because
everyone
we
else
keep
is like, nope.
crashing.
They were having a great time, and then it got dark, and we started crashing, and they were like, "See ya."
Bye. So these cars are very popular and very special to the northeastern United States. They are well loved there. They race all over New England. It is the car. If you ever go to the Northeast and you want to see racing up there, go see a modified race. Go to Stafford and see one, personally, I would suggest. But there's also other places, Star Speedway. I think Monadnock in New Hampshire. There's...
Is this what they race at
Thompson.
Mid-Ohio? Because I'm pretty close to Mid-Ohio.
No, they don't really travel outside of the East Coast. They tried going to Iowa, but they did a test and then never took advantage of it, sadly.
Oh, I gotcha. I think
Something
I'm
these
coming
cars
up on...
could really do with is brake lights.
Yeah, that sure would be nice.
I've got no idea when Chris is braking.
I
Well, that made it
clipped
pretty
the-
obvious.
I clipped the top edge just a little bit, and
Oh,
that
no,
little bit of change of speed.
Oh, we were doing so well as well. We were driving
Yeah.
around pretty much next to each other the whole way. I was like, "Oh, this is beautiful." And then I got tap number 1 from Jeff, which is on here.
No, it wasn't me. I drove into that after it happened.
Oh, there's a guy called Ben Reagan who is driving with a Jeff Maconi Setup Shop livery.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh, really?
Completely dark.
now how am I supposed to drive?
Oh, God.
Uh-oh.
Okay, this might be game over.
I'm in the grass.
How do you know?
I can't even see the track at all.
Oh God.
Yep, I think it just got too dark at the raceway here. Oh, I'm hitting a wall.
Oh,
Chris,
that's
what-
grass.
Chris, what I'm thinking is one day we need to have we'll have a meeting and we'll be like, so we're thinking about maybe making this podcast like a professional thing where people think that we kind of know what we're doing, and maybe we'll make that transition. But that meeting's
man.
not yet happened.
No. This I was saying to our broadcaster Mike before this episode, and I go, you know what? At the end of the year, I'm just going to make a compilation of all my crashes, because every single race so far, I've had some sort of epic crash.
Yeah.
And almost every show, it's actually been on the broadcast as well. So thanks for that. No. Nice. Okay. Well, it's just going to have to be the thing. I'm not trying to do this. I know it looks like I'm just like a stunt man doing this professionally and crashing perfectly, but no. I'm actually trying to race, and I'm just being rubbish at it, as
Jeff
they
is
would say over
persevering.
there.
They would.
I'm
I know,
trying.
He's still going.
He's still going. Also, I'm really. I got 6th. How did I come P6? Pretty happy with that. How did that even? Ooh,
I'm in 9th.
Nice.
I don't know.
Do you know what
how
this is, right? Do you know what's happened here, right? Is there's a part of me that thinks that maybe there's a few people who have listened to the podcast before and thought, oh, they're doing iRacing. I'm going to give that a go. I'm going to see what that's all about. And then we have provided them a completely pitch black track.
The worst experience ever, right?
in which
Welcome to iRacing.
to begin their
So what
oval racing careers.
What I'm picturing Jeff doing right now is, you know, when like in Drive to Survive, when they show the racer like envisioning the track, their eyes are closed and they're just like going through the motions of the track because they remember where the break points are, where the turns are. That's what I'm imagining Jeff is doing right now. Since he's been on the track, he's like, okay, plant it for now, small break, turn, like just.
I
muscle
am
memory.
right now gaining on the car ahead, and because the car ahead is an AI, and I am also, I have not gotten any off track. So, oh, there it is. I spoke too soon.
Oh, there.
But I ran like 4 laps without
I was
touching the grass
watching
or
you on the
anything.
feed. That was going well for literally having no track texture in front of you at all. All you
Yeah.
have is lights and shadows of fences on your right hand side. That was well done.
Oh no!
It's-
I've lost it.
Do we want to, since the track is all black at this point and we can't really race, do we want to transition into the viewer questions if we can find some of those?
Yeah, I actually haven't seen any questions, but that's probably because Jeff has been incredibly thorough with
Yes, he has.
explaining exactly what oval racing is and how to build a setup. But what I'm interested in is how on earth Jeff Maconi, who is basically a pro driver at this point, is half a second faster, right? Half a second faster. If that was GT3 and I was racing, I don't know, even like, I don't know, Danny Juicer, I was racing, or we had McLaren Shadow on and we were doing some laps and I was half a second slower, I'd be like, wow, oh my God, this must be natural talent. But I feel like in oval racing, actually that half a second is a lot because the whole lap is like 18 seconds.
Yeah. Your whole lap is 18. In my case, 18.3 seconds. I'm gonna get.
Well done, sir. Well done, sir.
Thank you. I'm gonna get all of this back set up again.
Okay.
We were making fun of Tom's jorts, and here I am wearing basketball shorts.
Oh, borts.
Hey,
you mean borts?
Those.
Borts.
Oh, now we're just gonna prefix
We're just
everything
making up
with
words.
Whatever. Okay. So Tom, I think we need to practice that a little more. We do have the iRacing memberships now, and also it's a lot of fun. So the thing is you don't really have to focus as much. So when we're racing, let's say a formula car, right, and you're on a road track, you've got to memorize 12 turns worth of break points, apexes, all these things. So it feels like, I don't know, in the oval world, it almost feels like not necessarily easier by any means, but it feels like you would be able to kind of settle into a groove a little bit easier than you would in an F1 car or a GT3 or GT, I don't know.
Right.
It's
I think you have more capacity to focus on the racing rather than the driving. Now that might be a really like ignorant thing to say, having done literally 20 laps. But
in
I
pitch
feel
black.
like in the pitch black, yeah.
In the pitch black.
But when you race a road course, I'm calling it a road course now. That's because I've been on iRacing for like 20 minutes. When you race like a road track, the corners have a character, and then the sequence of corners will also have a feel to it and a flow and a character. And you need to take one corner maybe not optimally because you're setting up for the next corner. So there's a lot more in terms of the positioning of the car. Yet with oval racing, I feel like the racing element of it and the tactics of getting above or below, or the nudges, I feel like there's a lot more to it. And actually there seems to be a lot more like mechanical adjustments to the car whilst you're racing. So it's like I said earlier, it's almost like a different sport.
Yeah, it's a lot of differences between the two and how you approach it and how really how your mindset is. With road racing, a lot of it is racing yourself. Oval, you're racing against all the other people there and the track, but you can slip into a rhythm and just click off laps. I find myself more in a rhythm on road courses in stock cars than oval.
Okay.
But that's just me. I mean, this week they're at Watkins Glen in the Xfinity and Cup Series, and I've won races in both those series, and a lot of it is just getting into do it over and over, and you're just turning laps. But with ovals, I find myself really focusing on every corner, feeling how the car is, feeling how much it's changed from the last lap, who's around me, how much do I need to push, is the guy behind me gaining, am I pulling away, am I burning my right front tire off, what am I doing wrong and right? So it all depends on how experienced you are and how it's laying itself out.
Well, like in road racing, let's say you're in 7th place in an F3 race, right? You could be all by yourself from laps 2 to the end. You could just you're just in that big gap zone where no one's attacking, you're not attacking anyone, you're just by yourself on the track essentially. And it feels like in an oval race, how many, for example, at Stafford, how many cars typically race at one time on that oval, that small little 18-second oval?
Up to 20.
So up to 20 cars. So there's never a moment where you're not white-knuckled, just focused all the time. Because there are times in a road race where if you're by yourself, you're just kind of in a groove. You're just kind of like, I don't know, driving at your best pace. And you're just settled down. You're not really white-knuckled, as I said, and you're just relaxing and just having a drive. Whereas, just in ovals, if you're 10 seconds behind, you're in the pack of other people that are better than you, and you're just constantly jockeying back and forth between cars. That would be a lot. So how many laps is a typical oval race?
It depends on the series. For a tour mod race at Stafford, about 80 to 120, somewhere in there.
Okay. That's a long time to be on like max concentration, perfect turns, perfect feet, everything just mixing all together. That's a long time to have to focus on that. And then also look in your mirrors, make sure you're not going to get rear end. Just all those things is crazy.
You're the right way up.
Mm-hmm.
For us, making sure that
you're driving your own car and pushing it as hard as you can. Also making sure you're not holding someone up behind, doing something that they're not going to appreciate. Making sure you're not running over the guy ahead of you. You've got strategy playing out for when you're going to pit, if you do at all. How much fuel do you take? Do you need tires? How are your tires wearing? There's so much going on at any given time. Oval racing, it is as much an art as road racing is, I would say, in how you approach it. And it's two completely different mindsets, both of which are very intricate for what they're looking at, I would say.
That's very interesting and kind of eye-opening. While I knew, obviously I'm an American, so I know of NASCAR and all of the oval track racing that we have, but it's never been one of those things where I hop into a sim and like care about trying. So you pushing us over to this side actually gets me to go, you know what, that was pretty interesting. I could see myself really getting into that. Now, I do want to do a little bit of that sideways drifting stuff because I don't know, I've always wanted to master drifting in a sim, and I've just every single time I do it, it's just 360s or 720s, however many times I happen to spin in a circle. But yeah, that's a really cool world to be opened up into, and thank you for forcing us to go into the oval racing.
I think
you guys had fun.
That was a lot of fun. I think you and I, Chris, are going to have to start opting out of sleeping because we had the episode with GP Laps where he opened our eyes to classic car racing. I became a big fan of classic car racing. You not so much, but I think every time we have a guest on the show who shows us a different discipline of sim racing, we're just going to grow this to-do list, which is going to be massive. But then that's kind of the beauty of sim racing, right? People call it a niche. But actually, within that niche, there is quite a lot you can do. I know, Chris, you're a big advocate of the free roam, like just going on something like Forza and just driving around, just messing about, having some fun. Whereas for other people, they would hate that. They want to be like perfecting their time, shaving off hundredths around whatever track in an F3 car, an F1 car, and then you've got GP Lap Jake, who likes to go around and try out all the old cars, but on the old modded tracks. And now we've got oval racing. We're going to have to try dirt racing at some point on the podcast as well.
Yes, we are.
Gosh.
Yes, we are.
So next week, we have Dave Cam. So we're double iRacing.
I love Dave
We
Cam.
are.
Yeah, we are double iRacing. And Chris, you're going to hate me here because I'm doing something that we didn't discuss beforehand. But let's try and bring back the guest asking the next guest a question, given that Jeff and Dave are both iRacing connoisseurs. So we had an idea at the beginning, and I think we just kind of forgot about it by about episode 5. It was like, this is going to be like our thing. And then it stopped being our thing. So we have Dave Cam coming on the show next Sunday. Jeff, you can ask Dave Cam a question, and we will then put that question to him live during the show. What is your question?
Dave, you race a lot of cars on both road and oval side on iRacing. You and I first met in a fixed setup tour modified series race at Iowa, where Anthony Alfredo and I battled to the end, and he won it over by a couple thousandths of a second. Now, with that in mind and your experience on both, what cars do you think perform better? Would you rather do stock cars on an oval with something you're less experienced in, or would you rather run the stock cars on a road course since you have more experience over on a roadside? Which do you prefer more? Because I know you've done both. That's my question to Dave.
Ideal. I tell you what, that was a good question with some context. What we need to do, Chris, is we need to like clip that up so we can play it during the show.
Can be done. We can definitely do that.
There we go.
Technology knows no bounds.
Jeff, this was a fabulous episode. Again, thank you for opening our eyes to the oval racing and even a little bit of the iRacing world, because like I said, us road guys have the benefit of just having almost our pickings of games where we can just pick and choose between a bunch of different ones. But it makes a lot more sense to why iRacing is so strong in its foothold of oval racing and NASCAR. Is there anything that you want to share with our audience that, direct them to your site or anything like that?
Well, if you're ever looking for setups on iRacing, be sure to head over to www.MaconiSetupShop.com. We have a lot of really cool things in the works. Our road program is growing, and it's a lot of fun. Daniel Civisbravo does an amazing job. We have setups for the Porsche, Ferrari, and Mercedes GT3 in both the IMSA and VRS series. We have the Porsche, Aston Martin, and Mercedes GT4 cars for the series that runs there. We have LMP2s for IMSA and ESS. We have Formula 3, Formula 4, and Formula 1, all on the road side because I know road is popular. So be sure to check those out. On the oval side, or you want to dive into, check out the subscriptions page. The best thing you can do, in my opinion, if you're going to get setups from us, is get a subscription. The All Asphalt subscription covers everything from Legends, Cup cars, as well as all of our road setups, $30 USD a month. Check it out at www.MaconiSetupShop.com/subscriptions. We also have setup guides, we have coaching, we have booklets, we have all this. We have a paint shop, we have all these different services available. Be sure to check it out. If you ever have any questions, message Facebook, Twitter, any guys. Thank you so much for having me on. Expose you to my personal favorite car track combo on the service, Torn Modifieds.
Well, thank you again, Jeff. And then, Tom, is there anything any closing words that you'd like to tell our viewers? No?
No, thank you very much.
Thanks as always, guys. We're Grid Finder, so if you want to follow us and get updates from either the Grid Finder website or even Sim Sundays podcast, just search Grid Finder and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all over the place. Of course, we thank our sponsor, Trak Racer, at trakracer.com. So if you're looking to upgrade your sim setup, go ahead and go there. And other than that, we will see you next week for Dave, Cam, and some more iRacing. Thanks for being here. See ya.
Thank you.